Hello friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Sometimes a client can have excessive chutzpah, or stupidity, you decide after you hear our first story, and try to get an unrealistic discount on a job you do professionally. But our OP in the first story is a tough nut to crack. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. 2 kids should cost the same as 1 kid. When I was in teacher's college, I offered tutoring to supplement my income from my part-time job. I got a message from a potential client about his twin sons. He seemed all right, so I met them at the local library for a consultation. When it came to rates, though, this guy could not understand why I charge him separately for both boys. I charge $15 per student an hour for elementary school students, which was already significantly below market rates in our area. I was even willing to knock it down to $25 between the two of them. Fair, right? This dude went off arguing on me. They're in the same grade and learning the same stuff. Why would I charge them separately? Because, dude, first, that's my rates. You're welcome to go to the big tutoring business that'll charge you double per kid, and you'll definitely have to pay for each. Second, you told me when you contacted me, and it became very clear to me in consultation, that while your sons are in the same grade, they're reading and writing at different grade levels, which means I'm looking at planning and delivering 2 completely different lessons. And even if I weren't, I'm still looking at double assessments and reevaluations. I ended up refusing to take them as clients. Too bad, because they were great kids. And our next story. Gas station Karen gets the reverse. So I made my usual stop at the local gas station this morning, only to find the parking lot full of cars. I expected to find a line, but as soon as I walk in the door, I'm greeted by a woman, the Karen of our story, along with her 6 goblins. They're raiding the candy rack, and she obviously has no control of the situation, nor does she seem to care. They're blocking off the main access to the store, and a gentleman, the hero of the story, walks in behind me. Myself, being a non-confrontational person, am assessing the safest way around as he politely says, "Excuse me," so I step to the side. He makes the same approach to the Karen and her kids, to which she angrily snaps her head up at him and says, "I'm sorry, can't you see my children are picking out their candy? You can wait. It'll only take a second." He looks back at me, to which I just shrug and opt to go around the tight back aisles to avoid the stock boxes on the floor. He follows me, and we both come around at the drink coolers, where I proceed to snag a drink. Guy does the same, and just as I'm about to move on, the dreaded throat clearing erupts from behind us. "You two are unbelievable. My children were about to get a drink, and you just shoved your way around them. Do either of you have any manners?" Guy smiles and says, "My friend and I were just grabbing our drink. You can wait. It'll only take a second." Her face turned red, but she kept her mouth shut. As I'd suspected, the line was not short, and I managed to make it there before this evil woman, but now had to endure the entire clan behind me. They were whining, complaining, and leaving the line to get more things. It was like she was running a circus or something. I saw the cashier kept looking in her direction, and I could see the dread on her face that told me this was not the end of my adventure with this woman. Then I hear one of the children say, "Mommy, look, they have pizza." I noticed there were 3 slices left, and she was trying to figure out how they could split them evenly. I'm now trying to justify buying all these slices when my hero walks over and helps himself to the last 3 slices on the warmer. I didn't have to look back to know what was coming, and there it was in a voice that echoed through the store. "Hey, a-hole! Those belong to my kids! They asked for them first, so you better give them to me now!" He smiled and said, "Lady, if you wanted them, you should have gotten them." She huffed, "You obviously don't need all those, so at least give me 2. There's no way you need 3 slices that big." He grinned, "Sure I do. 1 for now, and the other 2 for my 2 breaks at work." I love this guy. She starts screeching at the guy in the language of the Karens, and I just try to tune her out. The children start screaming and crying when she at last turns her attention to the cashier and starts demanding she make more pizza. The cashier looks at her and says, "Our policy is that pizza can only be made in downtime intervals, and it being a holiday would probably be a while, seeing as she was the only one running the store." Karen, "That's bullcrap. I come in here all the time and know the owner. Let me speak to him right now. I'm going to have you fired and this man removed from the store." At this point, I'm laughing to myself because I do know the owner and I see the biggest grin comes across the cashier's face. That's funny, because I know all the regulars in this store and have never seen you before. As for talking to the owner, would you like to speak with me or my husband? Karen shut up and snatched everything from her children. She started stuffing it anywhere she could and shoved her screaming horde out the door. Guy still bought that pizza, and between him, myself, and the cashier, we all shared a good laugh. I mean, I know the holidays can bring out the worst in people, but damn. I loved how your friend did a reverse Uno card on Karen and her demon brats twice. And our last story. Get your crap off my property. In advance, this is not my personal story, but rather that of my friend and his neighbor, retold with his kind permission. I'll write this in first person as my friend to avoid confusion. I'm also not very technically minded when it comes to electric, so please bear with me and I shall explain as best as my layman knowledge allows. Begins. So I live not far from Millamilla in North Queensland, up in the mountains and rainforest. On my property, I'm blessed with a strong mountain stream that never goes dry and was perfect for a small hydroelectric setup to produce power for my house. Now, to place it on my property, I would only need a small head of water, meaning the hydro system would not be running at full capacity and produce a lot less power than it was actually capable of. To ensure I never was left dry, I instead installed 2 hydro systems, which essentially meant I could now run everything as much as I liked. To burn off excess power produced, I mounted a row of heating elements from old hot water systems on the roof of my shed. I couldn't feed the excess back into the grid, as apparently it's illegal to do this from hydro for some reason, but it's apparently perfectly alright from solar panels. Pretty nice setup once complete, and apart from a very small amount of maintenance, I never paid a cent for power ever again. I was on very good terms with my downhill neighbor, and eventually we struck a deal to place the generators on my neighbor's property, where there would be a higher head from my weir, and the turbines would run at full power, easily providing enough electricity for both houses. So we poured a new cement slab for the generators and ran a new feed pipe from my weir to the new generator site, wired everything in, and hey, presto, free power all around. Everything was good for nearly a decade, until my neighbor finally sold the place and moved south to be with his kids. At first, the new neighbor seemed okay. He'd been told about the power sharing arrangement, but apparently had not grasped the bit about the generators being on his property. They were down by the creek and in the forest, so it may not have been immediately obvious where they were located. Unfortunately, when he did discover them, he appeared to take it as a personal affront and came storming to my door one night. "Why are there 2 bloody great machines on my place with a pipe coming from your place?" You mean my hydro turbines? Is that what they are? Why are they on my property? I don't want them there. You need to get rid of them, or I will. Wait a minute, those turbines are where our power comes from. We can't just rip them out. That's not my problem. I don't want your crap on my land. You have 1 week to move them or else. The discussion went on some more as I tried to get him to understand why they were there and what they did, as well as the original deal to share power because of where they were. He was either too stupid or too rude to care, so I finally agreed to move them the next day. So the next morning, I shut off the drive pipe, disconnected the turbines, loaded it all up into my ute, then went to the original site on my property and reconnected the whole mess. Of course, I had to use the original wiring setup to connect them, which only supplied my house. In any case, there was now only enough power for one place anyway, due to the lower head supplying less pressure. All good, and my place had power again by the evening. My neighbor came back home after work to a dark house and defrosting freezers and went mental. "Where the hell's my power? I'm supposed to get free power on my place. You can't do this." As I repeatedly explained yesterday, the deal was you get power in return for me being able to site the generators on your property. Now that you forced me to move them, you get nothing. In any case, they can now only supply enough power for one house because of their location, so I guess you're going to have to sort out something for yourself. Neighbor stormed off to buy a petrol generator. In the coming weeks, he had an electrician in to do a quote to supply mains power to his house. Wasn't happy with that, as the house had been off-grid for a decade and would need extensive modifications to get back on grid. They'd need to put a new pole in on his property at his expense, as well as a new fuse box, around $15K. He then got a quote for his own hydroelectric turbine, but discovered he didn't have sufficient head on his property. The salesman suggested he talk to his uphill neighbor, me, to see if he could run a pickup pipe from that property. Guess who came to my door, cap in hand and very apologetic, to ask if I would mind putting the generators back on his place so he could have power. When I told him there was no way in hell I was going to do that, he asked if he could have permission to run a drive pipe from my wire instead. Gee, I don't know if I want your crap on my land. Haven't heard so much as a peep from him since. What a freaking idiot! He got free power in exchange for having the equipment on his land? Some people just amaze me with the amount of brain cells they don't have. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.